Welcome to Paul Ponders. My name is Paul Solano of PS&L Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com. Thank you for joining me for my foray into podcasting. It is great to be collaborating with my friend and associate Chalonzo Amos of PodPro Entertainment to bring you some fun, exciting, and informative podcasts. For many years, I've been referred to as the connector, or in Greater Boston circles as the connector. With PSNLmarketinggroup.com, I've created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please sit back and relax and listen to today's podcast. If you are driving or operating heavy machinery and just listening, then please just listen and stay focused on your task at hand. Thanks again for listening. Enjoy my ponderings. Let #Paul Ponders begin. Greetings. Welcome back. PaulPonders.com. Yet another podcast. This is a lot of fun. I will tell you, I am having a blast doing this. This is really a lot of fun. I've enjoyed commenting on Facebook with the teases we send out before our podcasts, and I am blown away at the response so far, and I am amazed at how many people have actually asked me to send them the contract Apparently Love. Awesome. I really, really appreciate your support, and all those people who are subscribing, family, friends, loved ones. Thank you for subscribing. I sort of want to lighten the mood at this podcast. And, it's really a serious situation when someone passes away. And I'm just thinking about something that came across my desk. And I didn't write this, but I was pondering it. And I was really saddened to read about this obituary. And it goes like this. We have to pay homage and respect to the late Mr. Common Sense. I think back. Well, let me just, before I go over the obituary of the late Mr. Common Sense, I just want to think back to my high school days at Malden High. I had a great principal, dear family friend, like a dad to me, but Mr. Arthur Boyle Sr., just a great principal, just a great guy. Great man. One of the buildings at Malden High School is named after Arthur P. Boyle. He would always talk about common sense, and I always remember him saying, boy, he has to really have some common sense, get some common sense. And he would shake his head. Always had that three-piece suit on. I remember him standing in the hallway, and I always remember him talking about that. And I also had another teacher, one of my faves of all time, one of those Mr. Holland Opus teachers, Mr. Anthony Garino, Mr. Tony Garino. He would always use the word chooch. I reflect back to Mr. Garino, great history teacher, great man, taught me a lot of things. Maybe I'll do a podcast on Mr. Garino and some of my favorite teachers at Malden High School and at Beebe Junior High and at the Holmes Elementary School in Malden, Massachusetts. For those people who are tuning in from other parts of the country and you've never been in the wonderful, wonderful city of Malden, Massachusetts, where I was born and brought up. But let me go over this obituary of the late Mr. Common Sense. Today we mourn the passing of a beloved and old friend, Common Sense, who has been with us for many years. No one knows for sure how old he was, since his birth records were long ago lost in bureaucratic red tape. He will be remembered as having cultivated such valuable lessons as knowing when to come in from out of the rain, why the early bird gets the worm, life isn't always fair, and maybe it was my fault. Common Sense lived by simple, sound financial policies. Don't spend more than you can earn, and reliable strategies. Adults, not children, are in charge. His health began to deteriorate rapidly when well-intentioned but overbearing regulations were set in place. Reports of a 6-year-old boy charged with sexual harassment for kissing a classmate. Teens suspended from school for using mouthwash after lunch. And a teacher fired for reprimanding an unruly student only worsened his condition. Common sense lost ground when parents attacked teachers for doing the job that they themselves had failed to do in disciplining their unruly children. It declined even further when schools were required to get parental consent to administer first aid cream, sun lotion, or a Band-Aid to a student. Common sense took a beating when you could not defend yourself from a burglar in your own home, and the burglar could sue you for assault. Common sense finally gave up the will to live after a woman failed to realize that a steaming cup of coffee was hot. She spilled a little in her lap and was promptly awarded a huge settlement. Common sense was preceded in death by his parents, truth and trust, his wife, discretion, his daughter, responsibility, and his son, reason. He is survived by his 3 stepbrothers. I know my rights, someone else is to blame, and I'm a victim. Not many people attended his funeral because so few realized he was gone. I just passed this obituary along because I believe I still have some common sense, hopefully a lot of common sense, but I just want you to ponder what I've presented in this podcast. And that's about all I have for this podcast. I'm looking at the time frame, and yeah, we've pretty much taken up your time. Wait a second. Wait, there's breaking news here. Wait a second. Speaking of obituaries, my daughter, actually. I remember my daughter Ann, always enjoying she always would say that word, obituary. But anyways, this obituary just came along. It's handed to me. The Pillsbury Doughboy passed away. The Pillsbury Doughboy died yesterday in Minneapolis of a yeast infection and traumatic complications from repeated pokes in the belly. He was 71. Doughboy was buried in a lightly greased coffin. Dozens of celebrities turned out to pay their respects, including Mrs. Butterworth, Hungry Jack, the California Raisins, Betty Crocker, the Hostess Twinkies, and Captain Crunch. The gravesite was piled high with flowers. Aunt Jemima delivered the eulogy and lovingly described Doughboy as a man who never knew how much he was needed. Born and bred in Minnesota, Doughboy rose quickly in show business, but his later life was filled with turnovers. He was not regarded as a very smart cookie, wasting much of his dough on half-baked schemes. Despite being a little flaky at times, he still was a crusty old man and served as a positive role model for millions. Doughboy is survived by his wife, Play-Doh, 3 children, John Doe, Jane Doe, and Dozy Doe. Plus, they had 1 in the oven. He is also survived by his elderly father, Pop-Tart. The funeral was held at 3:50 for about 20 minutes. Thank you for passing that along. May the Pillsbury Doughboy rest in peace. So, I think it's time to sign off for another episode. Remember, check us out at paul@paulponders.com. Again, thank you to Chalonzo Amos, Pod Pro Entertainment, my collaborator, associate partner in this great venture. And again, I am totally blown away with number of subscribers, the people who are paying attention, listening. Maybe that's part of the common sense. Yeah, just tune into Paul Ponders, #Paul Ponders. Subscribe, share it with your friends and family, loved ones. Thank you again for taking the time. And until then, till we meet again, indeed. I trust that you have enjoyed #Paul Ponders. Again, my name is Paul Solano of PS&All Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com to do some more pondering. Many thanks to my longtime collaborative friend and associate, Chalonzo Amos of PodPro Entertainment, in bringing you our fun, exciting, and informative podcast. You rock, Techie Chalonzo. With psandallmarketinggroup.com, I created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me at paul@paulponders.com with any questions. Please share #PaulPonders with your family, friends, colleagues, and associates. Thank you again for listening to #PaulPonders, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or website paulponders.com, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Until we meet again, my friend, stay well, indeed.